Hi, folks, and welcome to the MEFA podcast. My name is Jonathan Hughes.
And I'm Julie Shields-Rutyna.
Hey, Julie.
Hi, Jonathan.
How are you?
Doing great. How about you?
Good. It's nice to be with you here at the end of the year celebration for us on the MEFA podcast. So this is our end of the year wrap up. So not just on the MEFA podcast, but for MEFA in general. So what does that mean? Well, to pull it back a little bit, MEFA has as its mission to help families to plan, save, and pay for college and career and to meet financial goals. That sort of encompasses every bit of what we do here. And throughout the year, as we're offering products like the U Fund and the U Plan, the Attainable Program, MEFA loans, we're also engaging in a constant outreach and guidance campaign, helping families to navigate the road to college, career, and financial security. And this podcast, the MEFA podcast that is part of that outreach effort.
So true. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. We're in the community through our ambassador program, speaking to families and students at high schools and places of business. And we're also, of course, available online so that anyone can access MEFA guidance whenever and wherever it's most convenient for them to do that. And that means articles, calculators, posts on social media, videos, recorded webinars, and this podcast as well.
So we thought a good way to take stock at the end of the year was to see what we did throughout the past year that really resonated with people. What did they want to hear about and to see? What questions did they have? And really, where should we go next year? Which brings this to mind. If you have a topic that you think we should cover on this show or in any form, please let us know. Email us at collegeplanning@mefa.org. Call us at 800-449-MEFA or find us on Facebook. That's MEFA MA. On X at MEFA Tweets. And on Instagram at MEFA_MA. Let us know what you want us to talk about, please. But let's see what struck a chord with folks throughout this past year. And let's start with our savers. So families with young children who aren't yet dealing with questions of how do I get into college or how can I become a veterinarian? But, just some of those families who are sort of saving or just beginning to think about the very vague future for their students. So let's see our most popular content for these families. What do we have, Julie?
Yes. Well, we did a lot of talking about 529 plans this year. So some of our most popular articles included the Massachusetts College Savings Tax Deduction.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that breaks down frequently asked questions about the tax deduction that you plan and you fund savers who pay Massachusetts state taxes can claim for making contributions to those plans.
And so what are those actual tax deductions then, Julie?
Yes. So if you are saving in a U Plan, prepaid tuition program, or U Fund 529 plan, or both, you can deduct up to $1,000 of your contributions for the year on your Mass state tax return. And that's if you're an individual. And if you are married, you can deduct $2,000 for married filing jointly. And that sounds simple enough, but there are always questions about who can claim the taxes, how that is handled, and that's what this article covers. And we'll post all of these in the show notes as well. Another article is, should I save for college in a 529 or a Roth IRA? And that's aimed at those parents who are wondering what's the best vehicle to use to save for college. And another popular article was ABLE accounts and 529 college savings plans. And that details these two different programs, ABLE being a tax advantage investment for people with disabilities to be able to save.
Well, I know that, speaking from the podcast point of view, our most popular podcast episode by far, not just throughout this past year, but our most popular one, period, belongs to 529 plans because it was actually a really big year for 529 plans this year. A lot of exciting changes for 529 plans. And so the episode that I'm talking about that was so popular is when Corey Latham from Fidelity Investments stopped by to talk to us about the new expanded uses for 529s.
So there are a couple different key areas in the bill that we're really focusing on. One was around that K through 12, those usage and the expanded uses that we have. The other one was really around credentialing programs. So currently the amount for K through 12 expenses is $10,000. That's going to actually expand to $20,000 per year. That doesn't go into effect until the next tax year, so beginning 2026. So what it really focuses on is kind of expenses that are in connection with the enrollment and attendance at an elementary school or a secondary school. So what are some of those things? It's curriculum or curricular materials, books or instruction materials, online education materials, tuition for tutoring or classes outside the home. Certain conditions have to be met for that. Fees for nationally standardized achievement tests, advanced placement exams, college admissions exams, and also like certain educational therapies for students with disabilities. So occupational, behavioral, physical, speech, language therapies.
And so let's talk about the credentialing programs now.
Well, this bill expanded qualified higher education expenses that can be distributed to include qualified post-secondary credential expenses. So what are some of those? Tuition, fees, books, supplies, and equipment required for enrollment or attendance of a beneficiary in a recognized post-secondary credential program, or any other expense occurred in connection with enrollment or attendance within that recognized post-secondary credential program.
And finally, I want to mention a tool on MEFA.org, which was really popular with families who are saving. And that was our college cost projector.
Okay, and what is that, Julie?
Yeah, it's a tool that looks at what the cost of college may be in years ahead based on what tuition and other costs are now and what the rate of increase has been. And so it calculates out this amount for different types of colleges, like community colleges, for your public colleges, for your private colleges. And this is for parents who maybe are saving and want to know how much college might cost at the time that their student goes to college in the future. These numbers are the sticker price. So without financial aid, most families will not pay the full sticker price.
Yeah, so be careful when you're looking at those. I remember when my son was just born and my colleague said, let's see what college is going to be for him when he turns 18. And remember, those numbers are the sticker price, not what you're going to get for aid. So that's important to keep in mind. Most families will be eligible for some level of financial aid. So this is not necessarily what you're going to have to pay. So what do we have for families with kids who are maybe closer to being ready to move on to college or career readiness?
Yeah, well, some information we have that's very popular is information about scholarships. So people always want scholarship opportunity information. They want to know what scholarships are out there and how can they apply. So we promote scholarship tips, how to apply and search for scholarships, and also specific scholarships to apply to. So some scholarships you can apply to before you even get to high school. One of our most popular articles was an article entitled Scholarships for Elementary and Middle School Students, and it had over 12,000 views.
That surprised me that you could apply for scholarships so early. So I'm not surprised that was a really popular post. So that sort of addresses our middle school student audience. But what about our high school students? Perhaps they're looking at careers. Perhaps they're looking at colleges. What do we have for those students?
Well, one of our most popular podcasts was with our friend Mark Stucker from Your College Bound Kid, where he talked about trends in college admissions. So those looking to apply to colleges should know information from this podcast. And let's have a minute to hear from him.
What are some other ways that students should think about whether or not this college that they've been admitted to is a good fit for them?
It's a great question. And I'd say one of the most important ones is social fit. Am I going to are people going to like me? Am I going to like them? Am I going to find my type of kid? And do I feel comfortable? Can I see myself there? And so, the best way to do that is to visit a school and to talk to a lot of students. That's the single best way to do it. Trust your instincts on a visit. You'll get a feel, and talk to a lot of students and ask them the tough questions. I like to tell our students, and this is what I do. Like, I'm about to do a 26-day trip to Texas, and I'll be visiting a bunch of colleges, one a day, and I sit foot on campus, and I plunk myself down there for 3.5 hours, and I talk to kids, and I have my questions. I like to ask them. My favorite question for opening is, tell me what you think are the best things about this institution. So then they talk. And then I go in the opposite direction. I say, if you could change anything and you were in charge, what would you change? And then I say, what did you not know until you got here? And then I say, what kind of student really does well here, and what kind of student, really doesn't? And you ask enough people those kinds of questions, you get a real good sense. But the problem is that type of visit is very resource intensive, right? It takes time and money. And then a lot of introverts are uncomfortable having those conversations as well. So school newspapers are great. Almost all of them have back copies, and you can go and read them on their websites, because they're never intended to be for prospective students. So you'll find out what the hot topics are, especially if you read letters to the editor, and you can really get a sense of what's swirling around campus and where the buzz is. And then some of the social media sites are quite good, like ZME, such as social media put on by college campuses, where a bunch of students all interested in the same school get together and chat. And reading reviews, I once had a parent from Denver I was working with, and she asked me about a student for her daughter, and she said, on the one hand, it seems like, and she said all these positives, but she said on the other hand, that she shared all these negatives. And she's like, I'm trying to figure out which one is true. Now, it's a school I knew really well. But I was just mesmerized that she had all of these insights. And so I was like, how do you know all these things? Because kind of everything that she was saying, from my perspective, was true. And she was like, well, I read a couple hundred reviews.
Wow.
So you can just go to websites like Niche and Unigo and many others, and you can literally read hundreds of reviews. And I encourage people to look at the stuff that keeps getting repeated over and over and over again.
So what about financial aid? So much of the guidance that we offer centers on financial aid and best practices as far as filing those forms.
Well, one of the most popular items on our website is our SAI Calculator. So families can get to that on MEFA.org. And what that is SAI stands for Student Aid Index. And that's the number that a family receives after they complete the FAFSA. Okay, so that's the number that they receive. And what that is an estimate of what the family will pay for 1 year of college, their student aid index. And it may not be the actual amount that the family pays, but it's sort of an eligibility index, gives a family a sense of what they might expect to pay for college. And so very, very popular. Let's say the formula calculates that a family can pay $10,000 for college, and the student wants to go to a college that costs $50,000. Then that's possible that you could receive the difference, $40,000, in financial aid. Now, you may not receive all of that, but you could be eligible for up to that. So again, that just gives a family a sense of how expensive college is going to be for their family, and how expensive a specific college might be for their family.
And Julie, when would families be looking at this SAI calculator?
Well, really, they could look as early as possible, right? I mean, if you have a young child, you can use this SAI calculator just to start to educate yourself about things. But of course, if it's 10, 12 years before your child goes to college, your financial situation is going to change over those 10 to 12 years. So it's something they could use continuously. And let's say you have a senior in high school or a student who is considering going to college in the near future. You could take a few minutes, put in your information like your income, your assets, your household size, and then that would go through the formula, sort of like the FAFSA does, and give that family a good estimate of what they can expect to be paying for college each year.
Yeah, I know it's a very popular tool, and we're very proud of our SAI calculator. But we've also done a lot of financial aid sort of content in terms of articles and things like that throughout the year. I wonder if you can give us a few examples.
We have that's our expertise, right?
Yeah.
So one great article that lots of people have viewed is what's reported on the FAFSA. There's another, what do I include on the CSS profile? And that's the CSS profile is the other financial aid form that some colleges require in addition to the FAFSA. So we have all kinds of information on the CSS profile. We have another article, what is the effect of retirement savings on financial aid? So let's take a minute to see one of our most popular videos too. And this one is filing financial aid for divorced and separated parents.
I think when at the college level, when we speak with parents who are separated or divorced, and Julie, awesome point about married parents too. Sometimes philosophically, they're not on the same page. So we do go a little extra mile to assure separated or divorced parents that their student is of utmost importance, their child, right? The process is all about their child. And by filling out forms that are requested by the college, it's not obligating them to pay anything. It really is just, it's necessary to determine the most financial assistance that their child can get. The other question, so that's one question. I don't want to pay, so I don't want to fill out the form. Well, that we're not telling you to. We need the information. And the other second, I guess, most biggest concern that we hear about is confidentiality and the intermingling of finances. Some families that are divorced or separated are wide open with their and willing to share. Others, as we all know and understand, like to keep things separate. They separated for a reason, and we respect that. The whole process is designed to be very confidential. Finances are separated, and it's just really important that communication keeps or starts early and continues along throughout the process. Again, all geared towards the benefit of the child.
All right. Thanks, Julie. Now, I actually want to take 1 minute to plug an episode of the podcast that I am particularly fond of and proud of, and that can appeal to high school students who maybe don't have college in their plans or other folks who are looking to make a change. And that is our How to Become a Pilot episode. So I interviewed two fantastic pilots, and they go over step by step how you become a pilot. They were great. And that's something that we have begun to do more and more of on the show, and will continue to do more and more of, is to highlight specific career pathways. So you want to be a pilot? Here's how you do it. So let's take a listen to a clip of that show.
Flying was a hobby for me. So I had my license by the time I graduated college. I got it that summer. Walked into the office there. It was called Freeway Airport. Tiny little airport, weeds growing out of the runway. But you could see the White House right after you took off. So you're really in close. And I just said I'd like to take flying lessons. And the girl at the desk said they were too busy for the next couple weeks. And I said, that's fine. Whenever you have availability. She said, 2 weeks from now, we got a plane. We're going to put you with Paul. I said, okay. I don't know who Paul is. That sounds fine. So I showed up on the appointed date, and Paul wasn't particularly nice. The plane was kind of beat up, but I loved it. I was hooked. I signed up for all the lessons I could get after that. By the end of the summer, I had my private pilot's license. It took me about 45 hours of flying time, about 3 months.
And
that's the private pilot's license.
That's the first one that you got.
The private pilot license is the first. And all that means is you can go flying, but you cannot make any money doing it. And then from there, you get what's called an instrument rating.
The next one was my instrument rating. That one allows you to fly when the weather is too poor to see outside the window.
And so what was that like?
It was, you wore foggles the whole time, basically, in the training. So you put these glasses on, and they block everything outside the windscreen, and all you can see is the instrument panel. And then you go fly around without looking outside.
That's how all of the people in the airlines fly you something you need if you want to fly, as most people think of a commercial pilot.
And I'll just close out with one more great episode that's actually geared towards students who graduated from college and are paying back their student loans. And this, of course, was from our friend Betsy Mayotte at the Institute of Student Loan Advisors. And she was on to discuss changes to the repayment policies of federal loans.
Congress did this different than they've ever made changes to the student loan programs before. Historically, when they've made changes in student loan law, they have grandfathered in existing borrowers to existing benefits. And they didn't do that to that extent this time, which again, and I've researched student loan policy back to the 70s. They have never changed or removed benefits from existing borrowers.
And what does that mean? It means like if you got a loan out while these options existed, they will always exist for you?
Yeah, so the example I like to give is, so back in 1993, there was a big piece of legislation that made really significant changes to student loans. But the way they word it, and this is the way they've done it for all changes up until this budget reconciliation here in 2025, if you had loans prior to July 1st, 1993, there was a whole bunch of deferments that you could get. You could get a deferment if you adopted a child. You could get a deferment if you were on maternity leave. You could get a deferment if you were temporarily disabled as opposed to fully disabled. Now we're all the way into 2025, more than 30 years later. Those borrowers who still have outstanding loans prior to 93 can still get those deferments. They didn't even take that away as part of this reconciliation bill, the one that just happened. But this time they didn't do it that way. So the way they did it this time is, so right now we have an embarrassment of riches as to the amount of different lower payment options that are available to existing borrowers. To go through the list really quickly, there's the 10-year standard repayment, which is the plan you get if you don't actively pick another plan when you first go in repayment. There's extended repayment. There's graduated repayment. There's extended graduated repayment. There's consolidation. There's new IBR, old IBR, pay as you earn, income contingent repayment. We used to have repay, that transitioned into save. The courts were in the process of killing save anyway. What this budget reconciliation bill does is for people with loans today that do not borrow again on or after July 1st, 2026, they can still have access to all the repayment plans that I mentioned. One exception, two exceptions, ICR, income contingent repayment, and pay as you earn are being phased out effective July 1st, 2028.
For everybody.
For everybody. Mm-hmm. So borrowers that have loans today can access all the plans I mentioned a minute ago. They can even apply and get on ICR and pay as you earn today. Mm-hmm. But if they are on pay as you earn or ICR as of July 1st, 2028, the Department of Ed is going to force them onto another plan. Mm. Now, if you take out a new loan or consolidate on or after July 1st, 2026, you lose access to all of those things. Mm. So that new borrowing contaminates your existing loans. And that's not the way Congress has done things ever before. And I think it's going to cause a lot of people to accidentally lose access to those plans.
So, Julie, when we look back at all of this content that we offered in the past year and what drove the biggest number of clicks, what drew the most ears and eyeballs, what do you think it tells us about what people are looking for?
I think it shows that families are seeking clear answers to specific questions. They want to know what concrete steps they can take to get their applications for financial aid taken care of, how they can apply for scholarships, how much college might cost, or even how they can become a pilot. And so they turn to MEFA's tools, videos, and podcasts to find out.
Right. And we're going to continue to help families plan, save, and pay for college and career readiness and achieve financial goals. Now, some of these topics are things that we know are important, but some of them we got from you. Suggestions, feedback, questions from students and families. So once again, if you have a topic that you want us to cover, as specific as how do I answer the question on the CSS profile about how much your family is planning to contribute next year, to something as general as how do I become a pilot. So I'll ask you once again to call us at 800-449-MEFA, to email us at collegeplanning@mefa.org, to reach out to us on Facebook at MEFA-MA, on X at MEFA-Tweets, or on Instagram at MEFA_MA, and to let us know what you want to know about. So Julie, thank you for being here, and Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year to you as well.
So just a reminder, folks, if you like the show and you want to hear more from us on planning, saving, and paying for college and career readiness and achieving financial goals, well, you can follow the show, and you can do that wherever you find your podcasts. And please remember to review us. Helps us to keep doing what we're doing and getting this show out. I'd like to thank our producer, Sean Connolly. I'd like to thank Meredith Clement, Lisa Rooney, Lauren Dans, Christina Davidson, and AJ Yee for their assistance in posting the show. Once again, my name is Jonathan Hughes, and this has been the MEFA Podcast. Thanks.